Hello, everybody. We'll get started in just a couple more minutes, waiting for some people to show up, and then we'll begin.
When I see your face, time to erase the soul. Aftermath is what I need. Here in the midst of rising, see break your horizon. Come along, stay with me.
Great. I think we're all set to get started. First of all, I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Denny. I'm part of the NetBlender development team. I'll be your host for this week's Expert Series webinar. I'd like to thank everybody for attending. We have a lot of new faces on this webinar, so it's really great that you guys were able to take some time out of your busy schedules to join us today. What we're going to talk about today is we're going to go through a real quick overview of our release history since we have so many new faces here. Then we're going to tell you what's new with Dostudio Authoring 2.2. And then what's next? You know, something we do here at NetBlender is we try to let everybody know sort of what we're thinking and what we have planned. And we do this once or twice a year based on feedback from you guys, and then questions and answers. All your mics are muted today, so if you have questions, please use the right-hand area of the GoToWebinar panel, and you'll see a questions little control section there, and you can type your questions, and we'll try to answer them in real time, and if not, we'll answer all the questions at the end. So let's just get started about our release schedule. We introduced our Blu-ray authoring tool, DSA, in May of 2008, and in May we had 3 major releases. August and November, we released 1.3 and then 1.6. And then in 2009, we had 3 major releases as well. We did 1.7 in April during the NAB, and then another one in September, and again another one in November. And then you'll notice here for 2.0, we have 3 releases already: August, September, and November. That should say 2010, not 201. And you'll see that we've pretty much stuck to a pretty constant schedule, off by a month here or there, but it is pretty consistent. And moving forward, you can expect that's pretty much what our release schedule will be. Between these releases, there's obviously been a lot of other releases, minor releases. For example, we did a 1.1 release, we did a 1.4 release, we did a 1.95 release, we did a couple maintenance releases in DSA 2.0, and now we're at DSA 2.2. So we've come a long ways. And really, the key things that we've always been focusing on with these releases are making it easier to use and improving the performance. Those are the two things that we work on. And then when there are opportunities, we try to add new technologies. And in this case, with 2.0, we were able to add 3D support, or 2.1 is really the major 3D release that we had. So those are what we do. We don't get a lot. There's not a lot of opportunities to add new features, new technologies. But when they do, we really try to take advantage of that. So let's talk about what's new in DSA 2.2. Excuse me. We have 3 new areas. We have some core updates. We have a lot in our core updates. We have some new 3D updates, and there's a new IG editor that was released. It's version 1.3. So let's talk about the core updates which are related to our 2D updates. We've really improved the loading times, especially on older players. One thing that we've done between DSA 1.x and DSA 2.0 is we switched from our own graphics format in 1.x to a standard graphics format of PNGs in 2.2. And the one thing that was really great about our graphics format was that we were taking advantage of building a format that was able to be or able to work around players that couldn't perform certain tasks well. And our format would have those features built in. One of those is compositing 2 images, one on top of the other. Our image format did that very, very well. And now that we switched to PNGs, some of the old players don't do compositing very well. So we've really, really tried to enhance our performance for old players. 1.0 players have been discontinued since October of 2009. But we still try to make sure that our tool works across the board on as many players as possible, and we'll continue to do that until we see that the market share for 1.0 players is almost 0. So that's new. We've added a lot of new actions, some actions that allow you to move system parameters into APRMs and general parameters into APRMs. And this allows you to take advantage of more of the BD spec, and it also allows those who are going to be doing HTMV authoring to have, or even BD, additional BDJ authoring, such as games, have the game or the HTMV menu communicate with Dostudio's BDJ menu, and vice versa. So it's a two-way form of communication. We've worked on our animation actions. Sometimes for some of the events there was issues with those animations. So if you wanted just to randomly, when they hit the right key, to animate a mini block, we've improved that. There were times in Dostudio 2.0 where you would have a mini block, 2 mini blocks that take up the same space, but they would never appear on the screen at the same time. You'd switch between one or the other. And depending on how your menu was set up, sometimes that would not work. It worked in 1.9, and then in 2.0 we sort of changed that. Well, we put it back to the way it was in 1.9. So if you were having any issues there, that's been resolved. And we've updated a lot of the picture-in-picture functionality in DSA 2.0. It's actually a feature that doesn't get used much. But we've updated it for DSA 2.0, and we've added better support for our association actions. And we didn't quite get to adding support for the chapters actions the way we planned, but we did update the rest of the association actions, so they should work better for you. When it comes to our 3D updates, we now support the ability to burn BDR, BDRE, and pop it right into the PS3 and see it in 3D. That was a much-needed requested feature, and we worked with the PS3 team to understand what's unique about their player versus the other 3D players. Now there's automatic switching for BDCMF types. If you're doing a 2D, we're going to use BDCMF 1.02, and if you're doing 3D, we'll do BDCMF 1.2. The reason we had to put in this logic was not all the replicators around the world are actually on board with upgrading to BDCMF 1.2. There is a cost there for some replicators, not all, but for some replicators there is a cost, and they don't want to incur that cost unless they have a 3D disk. And the VDA is a bit relaxed on this. So we decided that instead of asking the replicators to all upgrade to BDCMF 1.2, we'll just put in some logic, and maybe in 2011 all the replicators will be on BDCMF 1.2. But now if you have a disk and you're sending it to maybe a smaller replicator, you've never dealt with, you won't have any. You won't have to ask them if they're ready for BDCMF 1.2. You'll just be able to use BDCMF 1.02, and that's been out for over a year and a half now. So it's been the version that everybody's been using for a very long time. There's new 3D commands in the movie object editor, so you can switch between 2D and 3D, and you can check if the player is a 3D player, if the TV is a 3D player. And there's improved support for importing an existing HDMV projects. So the idea here is that we've really, if you've been using another tool for your HDMV authoring, and you've done the work or you know that tool, you'll be able to import the menu and import the movie object file right into Dostudio, set up your BD title list, and hit MUX, and you're pretty much ready to go. So the switch between one tool to the other is very quick. It's so quick that we've heard that people are able to do it within roughly a day. So that we've really strived to make that transition very easy. So before I get into what's next, I just want to show you some of the new features in DSA 2.0, where they are, so you're not hunting around or quickly searching the manual to find them. We'll start out with the new actions here. And let's say I had a 3D, let's say bonus 2 here is 3D. My segment, it's not, but let's just pretend here. And I wanted to play the bonus. Bonus number 2, which is the Hawaii trailer. One thing I can do is I can actually, I'll be playing any 3D here. I'll be playing it in HDMV mode. So I would actually, real quick here, I'd set up a BD title, and it's going to be a 3D title. And I'm going to take my, I'm going to create a new playlist for this bonus 2. And then I'm going to drag that down. So now I have a 3D title, and this is my 3D title. So what I can do is, when I'm going to hit the bonus button here for Hawaii, that's bonus 2, enter key, I can actually now add a condition. I'm going to check if it's a 3D TV. And I could, oh, you know, see if everybody has, screen was paused, sorry about that. So here, let me go back on, let's remove that title. All right, let's start all over here. So here's my bonus 2 segment, and it's let's say it's a 2D segment, and I have a playlist here that's going to be a bonus 2, which is a 3D playlist, or it's a playlist and it has a 3D segment on it. What I would do is I'd simply add a 3D title here. I want this to be 3D bonus. Okay, and then now that I have the title set up, I can drag my playlist down. Now I have a 3D title. And I can, here on my enter key, I'm going to delete those actions, and here in my my statement, I now have a new condition. Is the TV a 3D TV? Yes. Then what I will want to do is I will say, okay, great. I'm going to play a Blu-ray title, and I'm going to play my 3D bonus title. Now, if it's not a 3D title, all I have to do is come down here and then say if 3D is equals no, I want to play my bonus chapter. And I'll say, whoops, play playlist, bonus 2. And it'll just play in 2D. I'll want to clear the mini box from the screen. And I'll change that to is not a 3D TV. So is better. It's good to label things. Otherwise you can get confused. Is a 3D and is not a 3D TV. So you'll see here in the statement list, just to add a new statement, there are the there is the new 3D fields. There's also a new always execute field. Sometimes what you'll want is you'll want to execute actions, but you'll want to execute them at the end of your conditions instead of at the top of the conditions. One of the times that you want to do that is if you want to play a playlist. So you want to change focus buttons, you want to move things around, maybe you want to have a mini block animate, maybe you want to do anything else with the screen, and then depending on maybe they're playing a bonus clip, or maybe they're playing song number 2, or maybe they've done something twice. You do all those checks. You manipulate the screen, and then you finally want to play a title, or play a playlist, or play a chapter. Well, you always want to do your play actions last, right? So we've added always execute. And let me give you an example of the always execute feature. So here I'm going to say that if it's a 3D TV, play the title. If it's it's not, then play the playlist. So I can come in here and say always execute yes. And I'm going to actually say this is going to be a move APRM into GPRM. I'm going to set up an APRM. I don't have any in this project, and I'm going to say this is my last play APRM. Now, GPRMs can only be numbers, and you can have over 1,000, so you can number them any number you want, and you have over 1,000 GPRMs to use. So I'm going to make sure that my APRMs are always numbers so that I can easily move them into a GPRM. So I'm going to set up an APRM here. And my last APRM play, I'm going to say this is going to be bonus 2. So I'm going to set it up as 2. So my last play APRM is bonus 2. So now I have my statement says always execute, yes, and I'm going to show you the new system parameters that we have. I'm going to say move APRM into GPRM. So in this case, I'm going to pick the GPRM that's going to be used in my HCMV, and the GPRM that's going to be used in my BDJ is going to be 200. So now in GPRM 200, I'm going to move my APRM, which is 2. So I can later check what was the last play, and it will be bonus 2. Or if I wanted, I can do some more fancy work here. But now I'm moving an APRM into GPRM. I could also come down here and say, well, I want to move a system parameter into an APRM. Now, system parameters are actually PSRs in the Blu-ray spec, and they hold all the various values for your current title to your current language, and there's a fixed number of them. It's under 30, or it's under 40, excuse me, and 23 is basically for 3D, I believe. And I can come down here. Oops, close. Meant to click that, and I can add a new APRM called Get 3D SPRM. And then if I go back over here, I'm going to say Get 3D SPRM, and now I'm going to get the value. It's going to be 1 or a 0, and it's going to store it into my APRM of Get 3D. And if I wanted to, I can then do a condition that can check that APRM. And if it is a 1, then I know that this is 3D. So that's how you would use the system parameters. And I'm going to say Get 3D. Now, you don't have to use the system parameters as I just showed you, because our system parameters are built into the field. So all of these are really system parameters, and you don't need to know what number they are or anything like that. But if you really wanted to, you can actually place a system parameter into an APRM and then do the check, just like we did here. And some of the other system new parameters, or you could do the same thing with the GPRM, and you can set a GPRM. So I can come down here and I can say, well, I didn't want to move an APRM into GPRM. I just want to take GPRM number 200, and I want to put the value of 2 in it, and now it's there. The SPRMs and GPRMs are new to DSA 2.2. So that's some of the new features and the new actions of moving GPRMs and using system parameters, and we'll publish the list of system parameters. What's nice is even if you're not using a HDMV authoring, but you're doing BDJ in Dostudio, you can now check to see what the player's languages are, and then determine what you want to do based on how the users set up their language. Because the users with Blu-ray players, the user can actually set their preference. You know, they like their language in Spanish, but they're living in the U.S. or maybe in Canada. They'll pick between French or English, and there's lots and lots of countries with multiple languages, so the users can set it the way they'd like. And now you can take advantage of that using the system parameters. So let's just quickly talk about some of the other new areas we've added. For those of you who are doing BDJ custom work, the BDJO screen is a little bit more polished, and it's ready to go. Here you would add your game, set up the playback for the game. It's probably interactive. You probably want to enable the top menu, do all the other conditions or setup for your BDJO. If this BDJO is just for one language, add your languages there, then set up your XLIT, determine if it's title bound, disc bound, etc. One thing that we've done here is in the English node, we've actually changed, we put in a warning. So if I change this to, let's see, I German, I'm going to change it to German, and we're going to present you with a warning. And the reason for that is that the PS3 still doesn't support showing the icon and the title unless this is English. The specification says that you could set up a different icon and a different title depending on the language of the PS3. If the PS3 is German, you show the German title. If it's English, the English title, and maybe you'd want different graphics for those. You know, that's very common. The PS3 still does not support that. They only support English, no matter which country you're in, no matter which region you're in. It still has to be English. So we're just putting a warning For those who might not know that, it's in our manual, but sometimes it's easy to overlook little things like that. So now you know that your disc will play fine, but it may not have the title displayed and the icon displayed. Maybe in the future, the PS3 team will get to that, but it doesn't seem to be a high priority for them. So I'm just going to say no. And another feature that's able to be done is you can now have 3D and 2D segments on the same disk without any problem. So I'm just going to go back to the slides since the slides were missed, and I'm just going to quickly review what we talked about here. For the 2D updates, again, it's faster loading times. We've improved the performance of Profile 1.0 players. And actually what we've done is we've added a new warning message for Profile 1.0 players. Again, these are players that are now starting 3 years ago to 2 years old. So they haven't been able to make Profile 1.0 players since October of 2009. The BDA has stopped supporting that, but we still support it. And so one thing we're finding as the players get older and as the menus get more complex, really if you want to ensure that your menu will work on very old players, that the image buffer needs to be under 25 megabytes. We're not going to limit you to 25 megabytes, but we're going to provide a warning message that says that your menu, depending on how it's designed, may not fully display in a 1.0 player. And by fully display, what I mean is that maybe parts of the PNG aren't able to get loaded because the Profile 1.0 player runs out of memory. And then so let's say half your menu just won't get displayed. So that's what we mean by that. And it's really, the option would be to go and tell the manufacturers they're not following the spec. But again, these players are so old that most of the manufacturers just say, oh well. So that's why we're putting in the warning. We don't want to limit everybody else who wants to take advantage of the 32 megabytes of image buffer to be limited even more. But what we're seeing is that more and more 1.0 players are becoming extinct. People are upgrading, and we'll continue to monitor how many 1.0 players are still in use. When it gets to be under 0.5% of the market share, we may remove our 32 megabyte limit and raise it up to 64, which is what 1.1 and 2.0 players support. So we've talked about our new actions. There's the new animation actions that are working for all the events. And just to show you, it's a feature that's not used a lot, but let's say when my menu starts, I could actually say, you know, show my menu block here, and then it's my main menu. And obviously I can add my on show here and animate it. But I could actually, instead of animating it here, instead of using the animate action on the on show, I could come here. I can say animate menu block from the bottom, and it'll animate it from the bottom. And if I wanted to set a specific focus, I could say menu buttons, set a button focus, and maybe I want to do my setup button. Whoops. There we go, setup button, which is here. So maybe when the menu starts, I want to animate it using animate menu block. And I could use this action on any of my events, anywhere. So that's new. Again, we've updated our picture-in-picture support, and we've really worked on our association actions. The chapter actions, if you build your chapters mini block within one set, go for it. Use chapter actions. If you have not, then we recommend creating conditions that say if chapter 1 equals, if the current chapter equals 1, show the menu block with chapter 1 focus. If the current chapter is 2, show the menu block with chapter 2 focus. So if you've designed your chapter menu block to be all in one set, go ahead and use chapter actions, and we'll still work on some smarter support for multiple sets for chapter actions, and we'll be looking into that. We've improved performance for the resume button, so if you resume, it'll actually, or the resume action, it'll perform better. And if you're not familiar with where the resume action is, it's here, resume to a time in playlist. You actually set it, and then you resume it. It's still in beta because we're actually working on a much bigger resume features and functionality with bookmarks and multiple disk support. So it's still in the beta stage, but we've improved its performance. 3D updates, I've mentioned that we now support 3D playback on the PS3 using a BDR and BDRE. Went through the reasons why we support both BDCMF formats. We've added the 3D commands, and we've really worked on being able to import your project that you've already done or a project you want to do in another tool and bring it right into Dostudio. So let's talk about what's next. We're going to have another release for 3D that's coming up. It'll be more for those who want to build a disk, a 3D disk that's going to be what we call a hybrid disk. You're going to do your menus and your loops and your trailers and your bonus in 2D, and then you're going to do your feature in 3D. And sometimes you'll want to switch to an HDMV, and sometimes you won't. So you can do everything in DSA's BDJ, play the 3D HDMV, and then come back into BDJ. So that's what's going to be supported in the upcoming release. We're going through all our tutorials. We're updating them across the board. That's being worked on. So keep an eye out. We'll post it when all the tutorials up. We're adding the videos. We're enhancing them. We're updating our DSA 2.0 training program, and we have some really great things coming that will be self-paced. We'll be looking at launching a new experts training program. So if you want to become a Dostudio expert, we'll have a new program for you to take advantage of. And then we're going to be launching something that we call our Experts Corner. This is basically where we have experts in the field who use Dostudio on a regular basis, and they're gonna give you sort of a tips and tricks, and that's going to be launching soon. We're going to be continuing to do our expert series webinars. If there's any webinar you are interested or any topics you'd like to see, don't hesitate to let us know. We're more than happy to get feedback from you on what you'd like these webinars to be. And we're going to be releasing a new product late this year called ScreamerNet. So that's what's coming in 2010, and we're looking at what features and functionality we'll be adding in 2011. So if you have suggestions, we're always ready to listen and to add those to Dostudio. So let's see if there's any questions and answers. There's one here. Can you set an APRM equal to an APRM? Currently, you cannot set an APRM to see if it's equal to an APRM. I guess in theory you could move APRM number 1 into a GPRM and APRM number 2 in a GPRM, and do some kind of check that way, but it's probably easier just to say if APRM 1 equals 5 and if APRM 2 equals 3 or equals 5 as well. So it's probably easier just to do a check the way you have been doing a check. Are there any other questions about DSA 2.2, 3D, HDMV, and what's coming for the rest of 2010. Great. So what we'll do is we'll keep this up for a little bit longer. The last webinar we did, the audio wasn't actually recorded, so we're re-recording that webinar, and it'll be up on Ning soon. And this webinar will be up there on Ning as well. There's a question about setting one APRM to another. That is currently not possible. So if you have, let's say you have an APRM of play count, and then you have an APRM of last play number, you would actually have to check to see the last play number and set it. But that is a good suggestion of being able to copy one APRM value into another APRM. That would be a very nice addition. And nobody's mentioned it before, so that's definitely new. So that's great to hear new ideas. Well, we'll keep the webinar going, and if there's questions, we'll answer them in the chat. There is one last quick question here. There is a new 2.2 manual in the help. We'll be releasing a new 2.2 PDF book soon, but the help has been updated for 2.2, and we'll be updating the manual as well for 2.2.